Let me ask you all, have you ever had a bad Easter? I know. We all say, no, you can't have a bad Easter. Like spiritual theologically, we know there's not a bad Easter. But I mean, have you ever had a bad Easter, where you just didn't feel it? I don't know about you, but there was my first year as a priest that mid-April, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, that Easter started with snow on the ground. And I don't know about you, but I was almost called to feel like Jesus was the groundhog, and that if he saw snow, he might go back in the tomb for another 6 weeks. Because it didn't feel like Easter. I don't know, maybe you had an Easter where it just doesn't feel, or it's hard to feel that it's what it's supposed to be. Kind of muster the feelings in your heart, your spirit to get up into it. And we all know, yes, it's Easter. It can't be stopped. It will be what it is. But there's the reality that we live with, that our hearts live in a world and lives that meet burden. That no darkness, that no loss, that no grief, that can be heavy, that life can feel broken and torn, and you just want to stay in bed and let the cover stay over you. It just, on days like that, it's kind of hard to feel Easter. And the thing is don't think that it's bad to feel that way. Just a reminder, it's not bad to feel at all. But to have that notion of how there is a heaviness to our living, into our days, it's a reality. And it's not something that's foreign to the gospel even. Remember that Mary Magdalene and the other disciples, that they had watched and followed Jesus. They had heard the hope and the promise, that they saw Jesus not just as some teacher, some nice leader, some good guy that loved them and kind of welcomed them. They saw Jesus as the next Elijah, as the next King David, that he was going to come and lead them to a new way of life, that he was going to throw out the Roman and show them that God would restore all things, like a kingdom, like a nation. And so the hard thing for them is on Easter morning, that first morning in the dark when Mary Magdalene sat outside the tomb, she was not feeling Easter. Because everything she had heard and known was gone. Broken and crushed, buried in a tomb. That the man that she saw healing, throngs of people listening to, she watched and wept at his feet at the bottom of the cross. And she watched this tomb be sealed. She was not feeling Easter that day. And we have to know, because we so often want to skip past how there is a brokenness and a discomfort in our lives, in our world, in our experience, that we want to skip to that, it's all going to be better. But the reality is that we live in the midst of a Holy Saturday so often. There's darkness and there's loss. There's grief and there is such languishing. I don't know, have you ever felt that way? The hard thing is that we think we have to push it aside. But the reality is that God does not wait for us to come to the sunshine and to know the good days before God shows up. That we are so often in our own personal hearts and lives afraid of the dark and the darkness that we run away from it and we try to couch up some other feeling. But the reality is it's in the dark that God begins to work. It is in the darkness and in the death and the loss and the grief. It is in the very bottomness of an empty tomb filled with death that God begins to work. And if you don't believe me, just think of Scripture that at the very beginning, what does God do? As creation begins, it begins in a darkness, in a void. Nothing is there in the midst of darkness and nothingness. You know what God does? God speaks and God breathes. And in the midst of the darkness, life comes. That it is only when we allow ourselves to be in the dark, when we allow ourselves to let the world be broken, that we allow God to come in and bring new life. And if there's anything here today, I want to tell you that God has something new happening may be in a moment where your heart is still grieving, and we live in days where there is despicable darkness. But God has something new already happening for you. But that can be so hard to hear. I mean, think about it. Mary Magdalene, she didn't recognize Jesus. I mean, she had been with him for 3 years. You'd think she would know him. But she thought he was the gardener. I don't know about you, but I've had moments where someone thought I was the gardener. It was never a good feeling. Especially when they found out that I was the rector. But Mary Magdalene knew, and she felt that lostness in the dark. And it wasn't until Jesus said her name, Mary, that her heart came to. Where do you need Jesus to call out your name? Where do you need to hear God speaking, I have a new thing for you now? Because God is bringing forth new life. And God knows we need it. And I don't mean this because it's just some kind of psychobabble mumbo-jumbo. Because the reality is when we live through the wages of the world, through the trauma, through the stress, through all the things that bear on us, the grief and the loss, that it takes a toll on us. There's actually a part of biology, a school of biology called epigenetics. Have you all ever heard of epigenetics? If not, go and Google it. You'll learn more from Wikipedia than me. But see, in epigenetics, it's a study of how the things that they are experienced, the things that are received externally, they're not just cultural changes, they're not just kind of political actions, but what a human being experiences actually starts to change how their body works. That's why your cardiologist will tell you, how do you reduce your stress? Because see, the stress, it changes how your cells in your body works. And see, epigenetics is a study of how it doesn't just change your cells, but those cells can also then be passed on to the next generation. So it becomes the reality of generational trauma. So if you're an African American and you are of a generation that is descended from slaves, you bear the burden that your great-grandparents did. There's an epigenetic trauma that's set in you that you may not even know. You think it's all good. I have a BMW, but you know you still bear the burden and the loss and the hurt deep down. And the problem is, unless we realize that, we allow those traumas and those stresses to keep acting and we react without knowing why or what. The same reason why a soldier coming back may say, oh, I did my duty, but the trauma and the stress, the moral hurt of serving in war and violence, it's carried on and born through them and through others. And you might think, let's just go back to normal, Father, but the pandemic's over. But you know what? We just had a worldwide trauma for 2.5 years. And it's changed everything. Matter of fact, I know that we've all experienced a moment where we realize, what happened to so-and-so? I haven't seen so-and-so. Why aren't things back? Because we have been traumatized and broken. And it's changing how we act. That's epigenetics. It doesn't just change how we act, though. It starts changing how our bodies act. Maybe you get a little hesitant when the line gets a little too close together at ShopRite now. You're like, why are you creeping up on me? It's not just kind of having to learn how to re-socialize. Something's working deep down that we don't realize because of what we've experienced. It goes the same for the grief that we hold for losing someone, for seeing the empty chair or place in the bed, for seeing the violence, senseless. Why can't we do something about guns in schools? It all keeps acting on us, and it changes how we are and who we are. changes our very createdness. But let me remind you, God is not done. That the power of the resurrection is the reminder that in spite of all the things we meet and experience, that even death, what we think is so final, God says, that is not the end. And I have more. That God says to us, while the world may shape and change our very createdness, now shaping us to something else in its own way, God says, but you are mine. And God calls us by name like he did to Mary. See, the power of the resurrection is not just that Jesus says, it's okay, feel better. Jesus says, I am making all things new. That our createdness in God is being restored to the dream and the wonder that God always has for us from the very beginning in the dark. Because here's the other side of epigenetics. It's not just some determinism of where you have something hard, so therefore you're stuck. The other side of epigenetics is that you can also be shaped by joy. You can be transformed by compassion. Do you even realize that? That you actually, by experiencing and knowing joy, it changes how your brain and your chemicals in your brain work. That when we find hope and promise, when we see wonder, it changes us. And it changes not just for something good, it changes back to how God dreams for us to be. People of wonder and hope that know life. But so often we feel like we're stuck in the dark in the ground. But I tell you what, when I work in the garden, and I love and I hate the garden all at the same time, but when I pull back those leaves in the bed from the winter setting, and they're mushy, and they're wet, and they're dirty, and they stink, and I'm wondering what else is in these leaves that I'm touching, gross. You know what I find underneath all those leaves in the wet, dark earth? Sprouts and buds. Little green shoots, as if they're saying to me, here I am. Life right there in spite of it. And see, that's what God reminds us to. In all creation, in the resurrection, God says, I have life for you still. And we can think that the world's paved over and controlled, but see, God will bring up life even in a crack in a sidewalk. And if God can do that, why can't God bring life up in you? You have much greater value. God has something new for you today. And so I want to encourage you. I want to ask you, I'm going to invite you, I'm going to hope and pray that you will for this season of Easter. Because remember, Easter is not just one day, it's a season. So go to ShopRite, buy all the Easter candy on sale now, and eat it for the next 50 days, because it's a season. You can eat Easter candy for 50 days, it's a season. But see, seasons are meant to be moments, periods that transform us. But just as Lent is drawing us to Easter, Easter is to shape us to be the people of God in the world. And so I invite you to a discipline. A discipline, the disciplines are not about you being bad. Disciplines about you shaping your behavior, your choices. I want to invite you to a discipline of joy. Say again, so you heard me right. I want to invite you to a discipline of joy. A discipline of celebration. A discipline of wonder. Instead of us getting caught up in what feels like a rat race where we need to join the judgmentalism, the actions, the divisions that are around us, can we start to see joy? Can we start to claim hope? Can we receive awe? Can we share wonder? Can you, each day to this Easter, choose a discipline of joy, seeking to experience it, to see it, to know it, to share it? And in doing that, share in the resurrection. Share in the recreation that God is setting in you already. Because I tell you what, The world needs it. The world is waiting for the people of God to step out in joy, to marshal hope, to bear grace to the world around us. So I invite you to get ready, to live into the reality and gift of Easter, to celebrate and hold a discipline of joy, and let your lives be transformed into the new creation God has already called you to be. So when we get to Pentecost, we can come and sing and praise and say thanks be to God for all you do for us. And amen.